All right, Danny, I think we're live now. So I'm going to start letting all the participants in, and that number is just going up and up. So if you want to let your Facebook page know what we're even doing here, and we'll just get this ride started.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to be starting this shortly. We're going to show the trailer to Danny's Twins film to kick it off, just in case you haven't seen it. We have three panelists and our friend Kelly, who is also a wheelchair user. All four of us are wheelchair users. And we're very excited to present this to you. So let's get going. Oh, and by the way, if you're not familiar with Help Hope Live, I'm a client of theirs. I've been a client for 10 years. They help people who have gone through catastrophic injuries, spinal cord injury, brain injury, transplants. They help us fundraise. So they've played a pivotal role in my life in recent years. And Danny's Twins is partnering with them to get our impact campaign going. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Danny. All right, thanks guys. My name is Sunny Mullen. I am the outreach manager here with Help Hope Live. And I just let everyone in, so we're gonna get started in just a few minutes. If I could please ask everyone to turn their cameras off. Everyone is muted, but if you could please turn your cameras off as well, that would be a huge help. And we are going to start off with a trailer of the Danny's Twins documentary in just 1 minute. So thank you for holding tight, and I appreciate all of you joining us today. We'll be right back. All right, so we have a lot of people already here, so I am going to just get going, and let me switch over to, let me stop sharing my screen real quick, and I'll switch over to another screen. For those of you that just joined us, my name is Sunny Mullen. I am the outreach manager with Help Hope Live, and I appreciate all of you for joining us today for our Hope Talk on pregnancy with a disability. If you could please be sure to turn your videos off, that would be a huge help. Here at Help Hope Live, we are a national nonprofit that assists individuals living with catastrophic injuries and illness to fundraise for their medical and related costs. So we are just so happy to be joined by these four amazing women today. And let me, as I said, we have a wonderful trailer for the Danny's Twins documentary. We will get that started as well. Share the screen. All right, guys. So Help Hope Live is so excited to be partnering with Danny's Twins, an upcoming documentary that follows the pregnancy and early parenting journey of Danny Isay, one of the few quadriplegics ever to give birth to twins. This film examines the larger thematic issues that negatively impact those with disabilities, while seeking to empower and mobilize change. Here's a clip to help kick off our Hope Talk.
Hi, babies. I'm so excited for when you come.
When I found out I was carrying twins, that was shocking.
How do we decide which one's which with the names?
I don't know. There were a lot of doubts as to how I would be able to handle pregnancy physically. I think I'll be a great mother. Part of that has to do with having a disability and going through a life-changing situation. It gave me a lot of strength. I think I'll be able to pass that to my daughters.
It's gonna be a lot of work, a lot of work.
Do you have much experience with babies in general?
People without disabilities still look at us like they're down here and they need our help.
A single quadriplegic is now facing criticism online after she recently gave birth.
I feel as though it's potentially dangerous.
The child will suffer because of it.
Society's attitudes and assumptions are more disabling than my actual disability. I'm so over all the recovery, trying to get better.
I think, though, that you need to be a little bit more proactive than that, Danny.
Because of your spinal cord injury, your body is prone to changes in your blood pressure and heart rate. The danger is that you may have a stroke or a heart attack.
My biggest fear would be complications that threaten the health and safety of the babies.
They're trying to locate the baby's heartbeats. They got one, trying to find the other one. There's still a lot of anxiety about COVID-19. If Danny or I get sick, it could put the twins at risk.
I'm going to teach my babies all about disability justice.
Do we know if they're identical yet?
We don't know until they're born. Like them?
Love them.
I'm constantly looking at adaptive tools. It's going to be the same thing with the babies. They're so cute. My ability to be a mother does not depend on my ability to walk.
Oh my goodness. How you doing, baby?
And now I'd like to introduce everyone to our moderator, Kelly Simino, a disability rights lawyer out of Washington, D.C., who founded her own law firm where she represents individuals following a spinal cord injury. She's also a proud mother of two with her third on the way. So Kelly, the show is yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sunny. I am so excited for today, not only because it's always good to be able to be in the company of so many wonderful people, but also because of who we're about to hear from today. It's so weird because I've actually never met face to face with these women, but I feel such a connection. And that's because we're women with disabilities navigating this, journey to parenthood. So today we have three women on the panel at different stages of their journeys. We're thankful to have this come together because of Danny and Danny's film. So we'll be hearing from Danny, Alyssa, and Amanda. And if you don't already follow them all on social media, you should, because their perspective and how they share their journeys are really incredible. I love following them all. But I'm going to turn it over first to Danny, and then we'll go down. And if y'all can just introduce yourselves and a little bit about your background and why you're here today to talk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danny, the lady from the film trailer. The film is actually still being produced. They're in the editing stage of it. So when it finally does come out, I will let you all know. I had my twins 9 months ago now. It's crazy to think that. And, you saw the trailer, it's pretty dramatic, but everything went wonderfully. Everything went well. And I've been adapting to motherhood pretty well. There's ups and downs, of course. And I'm just happy to be here and, do this with all of you. I think we all know that there's a gap of resources and information and peer support on this particular topic. And so, we're just really happy to be launching this discussion.
Great, thanks, Danny. And by the way, just for perspective, Danny, you're considered a quadriplegic, which means you have limited functioning in all four extremities. So just to give perspective to everyone on how we're all navigating our parenthood journeys. I'm a paraplegic myself, so that means I'm a full, I use a wheelchair, but I have my upper extremities. So, And Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, so if my voice sounds like this, I just want to say sorry. It's because of the pregnancy. But I'm Alyssa. I am currently 5 months pregnant. It's a journey. It's definitely a journey, but we're getting by, and it could be scary, but I mean, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Yeah.
And give a little perspective on your disability and functioning for everyone.
So my spinal cord injury is from birth, from forceps. It's a C1, C2 incomplete. So that means my left side is a lot weaker than my right side. I have full function in my right arm, my right leg. And very, very limited to the left side. And that also affects the diaphragm, which leads to me being on a trach and a ventilator 24/7.
Okay, and Amanda.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda. I'm from Orlando, and I was a senior in high school when I was in a car accident that paralyzed me. So I'm quadriplegic as well. I'm 31 now, and as I'm sure most people with a spinal cord injury know, your friend group gets real small after an injury, but I was lucky to have a loyal best friend who introduced me to my now husband, their cousins. So we've been together for 11 years. We'll be married for 2 in May. And we always just kind of knew that in our early 30s is when we would try to start a family. And just talking to like different mothers who had given birth naturally and who had used a surrogate to conceive, I kind of had it like dead set in my mind that I was going to use a surrogate. So about this time last year, we started doing going to different fertility centers to do fertility testing and genetic testing. And I was ready to do IVF and do an egg retrieval to find a surrogate. And I'm running into a lot of complications with that. So it has me back to contemplating getting pregnant naturally, conceiving myself. And so I went and saw a high-risk doctor to talk about the risks last week. So I'm here today just to share my journey and to just let people know that it's okay to want a baby, want a family, but to still want to put yourself and make yourself a priority and make your health a priority. And don't be afraid to ask questions and weigh out all your options. And I just thought it was a great experience for myself too, to hear from Kelly and Danny and Alyssa, because they've been through it all, they're going through it. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think the bottom line is we can all agree that the journey to parenthood, being a mother, can come together in so many different ways. I mean, for myself, like I'm a mother through adoption, I'm a mother through birth, I'm currently pregnant, going through it again. But Amanda, take us to where, like in this moment, you've been going through a lot of different appointments and contemplation. Where are you in that determination of surrogacy versus pregnancy, and what are the things that you're considering right now in making that big decision?
So the big challenge that I'm facing right now is that the fertility clinics are not certified to administer anesthesia to someone with my condition. So being passed around to fertility clinic is what made me, again, just try to kind of reconsider getting pregnant myself and doing it the natural way. And so but of course I have concerns for my health, for my lifestyle. Main ones were, and this is why I went to go speak with a high risk doctor last week. My main concerns were my low blood pressure. It's something I struggle with really, really badly. And especially when I eat, my blood pressure likes to drop. And because of that, I don't have a very large appetite, which again concerns me. Like, would I be able to give my baby enough nutrients that it needs to grow and carry it to full term? And I also had questions about my catheter. And really just like my lifestyle too. I was very active before my injury, which in turn led to me founding and running a paralysis recovery center, but it's also an adaptive fitness center and adaptive gym. And I train there 3 to 4 days a week. And that's very important to me and just to my lifestyle and my recovery. So I just wanted to weigh out all those options and really take in as much information as I possibly could before making like a rock solid decision. I will say though, after speaking with the high risk doctor and even speaking with Danny, who took an afternoon to give me a phone call and just kind of like talk about things, I think I am going to still kind of pursue the surrogate option. I think it's just best choice for my lifestyle, for my health, my recovery. So right now we are just trying to find a doctor that works for a fertility center in a hospital setting so that I can safely do IVF and an egg retrieval and eventually make the embryos and find a surrogate to start our family.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you will keep everyone updated on your journey on social media, because I know everyone will be interested what your decision ends up being and how your journey goes. You know, for women with disabilities, sometimes we are having to think on the front end about a lot of things, and that leads to things being planned. But sometimes, you know, life happens and pregnancies aren't planned. So Danny and Alyssa, talk to me, were your pregnancies planned? And if they were or weren't, like what were the things that popped in your head during that process?
So for us, I mean, it was somewhat of a plan, but not really. It was honestly the first time we ever tried, if that makes sense. It happened and we were shocked. We were like, no way, it's possible. I mean, Jimmy always wanted to be a dad. That was really one of the questions he asked after like a couple of dates. And I had no answer, honestly. It's like, I don't even know, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if I could. If I could or I couldn't. I also had an emergency surgery in 2009 because I had a cyst on my ovary that brought it over. It was dead and I had to get it out along with a fallopian tube. So chances was really low. I feel like getting pregnant with a spinal cord injury and having only one ovary. So like I said, we were in complete shock that it was the first time and it happened. But for me, I just, like I said, I didn't know if I could get pregnant, but it was scary at first, just knowing that I am. I was shocked on how I was going to be able to carry our little baby boy now, and just even the aftermath of just having him. How am I going to pick him up? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And how is Jimmy going to be able to stay home? Because Jimmy works every weekday, so it's always me being all by myself. So we're still having to figure out how he's going to stay home. But I've always lived like with no plans, if that makes sense. Like, oh, let's just wing this kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're doing, which I know it's like really bad. But I mean, that's just how life is, you know?
And I think for women or people with disabilities, we're already, our minds rewired in a way that we're automatically problem solvers. So the things that could totally freak somebody out, our brain is kind of made to just have to navigate challenges every day. And so I have no doubt that you're gonna master those problem solving.
I hope so.
Yeah, and Danny, tell us a little bit about your journey to pregnancy.
Well, first I want to say, winging it as a woman with a disability, I feel like that's just part of it, you know, because we don't have one place where we can go get answers. Like, I just wrote a tweet on this. I said, you know, non-disabled women swap personal insight at every turn in parenting magazines, on websites for expecting moms, and TV and media, pre and perinatal classes. But we navigate this journey almost alone with very few opportunities to address our really specific needs. So yes, we do wing it. We wing it all the time. And we're good at winging it.
Yeah.
So going back to the original question, yeah, so my pregnancy was planned, and the first step I took was to go see a high risk obstetrician. So in May 2019, I made an appointment. And at that point, actually, I still wasn't sure. I was kind of where Amanda was. Actually, I was less sure than Amanda because Amanda knows she wants kids, but she's not sure if she wants to pursue surrogacy or pregnancy herself. So I was just not sure if we could handle it. Like, I was like, I can barely take care of myself. How am I going to take care of a baby? But I was excited by the idea. So I went to a high risk pregnancy doctor. And I was also really worried about like my health. I was like, can my body handle this? And this doctor, she was so wonderful. She was from UVA, University of Virginia. And I would recommend to everyone here, somebody asked the question, is there a list of high risk OBs? Look for a university hospital in your area, and they should have, or maybe they'll have a department dedicated to maternal and fetal medicine. You can also ask the gynecology department about that. So anyway, this doctor was so encouraging, and she informed me and answered all my questions. And when we started trying in September, I instantly got pregnant the first try, which was shocking. And then I had a second shock when I found out they were spontaneous twins. So that's my story.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, I mean, I guess a lot of people would assume that maybe it was some kind of fertility treatment that led to the twins, but it was just nature. Alyssa?
Yeah, no, it's funny. People do assume, people assume that I think for a lot of disabled women that they, but regardless, it doesn't matter how you get there. You get there and it's worth it.
Yeah. But I always try to remind young women with disabilities that you can get pregnant too. So be prepared, be cautious, just like anyone else, until you are in a position where you are ready to be pregnant. So Alyssa, once you found out that you were pregnant, you said, I'm sure there's other questions that come to your mind, whether you're based on how you were injured, like with a C-section versus a vaginal delivery. Talk to us about like how you process those kinds of thoughts and where you are right now with that.
So no matter what, I always, even before pregnancy, I always wanted to do a C-section just because of what happened to me. Those tools, they're the most dangerous things ever, and I don't think people understand that. So that's why I like to advocate on that. But always was against them, always. So for me also, I don't have the strength to push a baby out. That's very difficult. And there's a lot of risk no matter what, disability or not, while pushing out a baby. It's just that for me, like pushing out impossible. So I found a high risk doctor in New York City that they are very, 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 very good, but they kind of was shocking me with how they had no answer to me having a C-section or not. Sorry. And just last week, I actually put my foot down. I'm like, I need a C-section. Like, it's not happening natural. I can't have a vaginal birth. There's no way. So they actually told me that I was down for a C-section, which for me, I was never told. So I was like, okay, good. At least that's done. But now they're telling me that I could choose if I want to have the due date saved as the C-section or have it a week before. Most likely we'll have it a week before. But for me, I still don't know if I will go for full term or not. Yeah, I'm very tiny, so it's hard.
Yeah, I think, and certainly, the bottom line is there's not enough research and there's not enough emphasis on the pregnancy journey of women with disabilities to really have a lot of literature out there on what to expect. I mean, I think we can, I've talked to a lot of women. I delivered my son at 38 weeks to the day. I went into labor on my own. I did have a vaginal birth, and it went very smoothly, but it seems like a lot of women, their bodies do start that process maybe 37, 38 weeks around spinal cord injury, but that's just coming from us all talking. Like there's not a lot of information out there. So I think to your point about choosing to have the C-section is becoming an advocate for yourself in every situation, and certainly, through the pregnancy. And I think that has a lot to do, and I know Danny talks about this a lot, about how mothers with disabilities are rarely seen as a caregiver. They're infantilized, like they ask, people don't understand what the ability is for them to care for themselves, let alone for a child. So let's start, Danny, talk us through like those types of things that you have dealt with and the misconceptions. And then, I would love to hear what Alyssa and Amanda have to think about that type of role too.
In the trailer, I think you saw my mom, the woman who said, it's in an Italian accent, it's going to be very hard. And I think she said that because I think she was afraid that it would be, it is difficult. It's not too hard though. So she was actually wrong. But I think she did have some assumptions that she made.
What were those?
I think, her assumptions were that I would need 24-hour assistance here to help the baby, that she was going to need to be here all the time, that we were all going to be struggling. It was, but we've all fallen in. I do have support. We've all fallen into a rhythm, and everything works like a well-oiled machine, and it's not hard, especially not with the right, we have the right support. So, but I think there's this like knee-jerk reaction for people to think, well, you're in a wheelchair. How are you going to do this? They don't have the imagination, to figure out how we do things in different ways, or we don't always have to actually do the parenting tasks. We can delegate those to other people and, still be the mom or the parent, the boss. So, I think that's kind of hard to deal with on a psychological level when people make these assumptions, especially if they're your family members and you love them and they're close to you. But just know that you have this community, all of us women, and so many of us have done it before, and we've all got your back, and just, try to gain strength and confidence from that assurance, because this has been done before, and our bodies are made, not everyone, but most of our bodies are made to make babies. So.
Yeah, Alyssa, so you're in the middle of pregnancy right now. How has that come up through your pregnancy journey thus far?
Sorry again. I mean, it was always a question like, well, how would you do it? Like if Jimmy was at work, this, that. I mean, it was normal questions that my family was asking. And I know they're just looking out for me and just curious. And then they're going to be around. So I know that I will always have support, even if Jimmy is at work. But we're going to try to figure out how Jimmy could stay home. If we could find something from him remotely, or whatever. But as much as he wants to work, I know he wants to be home to be with the baby. He
How
was
has that played out in your pregnancies thus far? I mean, I know, pregnancy is tough. Like me and you are, I think we're both like about a week apart from each other and in our due dates.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling it right now,
Oh, me too.
So how is that playing out just as a pregnant woman?
So it's going well. I mean, I'm not the emotional type to get like annoyed with the questions that people do ask me, but recently it's just like even the random people are like, well, how are you gonna take care of baby? What if he leaves you? But I'm like, if he was to leave me, I would probably kill him, to be honest with you guys. But I mean, from birth, I've always navigated, if you want to say, on how to be um, independent. Like I've always knew how to be that way. So if he, God forbid, was to leave, I have the support, like I said, with my family. And he wouldn't just leave his kid behind. It's his kid, you know. Um, and I said, as it is, I know I've went through that. Like my dad's not around, you know. So Jimmy's not like that at all, and I know that. Trust me. But I will navigate it if I have. If God forbid, I would have to, you know.
Yeah. And, Amanda, I know you're in this, state of contemplation, obviously planning out a lot, thinking about it. You're very goal driven, obviously, because of you're like, I have a plan. When I'm in my 30s, this is what I'm going to do. And I love that because I'm right there with you. But I'm really curious how those ideas that really society's like throws at us all the time as women with disabilities, like how did that get in your brain and how are you working through that and coming to your decision?
Yeah, I mean, I hear it, and I've doubted my abilities to parent before, so hearing it doesn't give you a confidence boost that you like. But maybe you all remember a few years ago when Dr. Phil made that whole comment about 100% of relationships where one is the caregiver won't succeed. And Matt's been my caregiver for like 9 years now. And so like we're already proving people wrong. So I try just to not let other people's thoughts into mine too much. I'm pretty confident in my capabilities when I am left alone and just Matt has something to do and I have to fend for myself. I figure it out, and I'm confident that I can do that with a child as well.
And I think that's a good point, that y'all have all brought up about support systems. I mean, hopefully no one, it's always better to have support behind you. And certainly as women with disabilities navigating pregnancy, parenthood, the journey through that, like we have to know who our support is behind us. Talk, Amanda, a little bit about how, with your spouse being your caregiver, how you look at a support system and how you see that coming through as you transition to not just being like having your spouse, but going into the role as a father as well and mother.
Yeah, so we are lucky too, though, that we have a lot of family around that will be able to help us out and support us, especially in the beginning when things are hard. But yeah, Matt, I really tried to like keep Matt from being my caregiver in the beginning for a long time because I didn't want to blur those lines and I just kind of wanted to keep it separate. But he just took to it so naturally. And I just feel like that's gonna be what it's like when he becomes a dad too. Like he's so anxious to be a dad anyway, and more so I think than for me. I'm more nervous, but I just because he's just such a natural caregiver, and we have such a good support system of family surrounding us that have already like assured us that they will be there to help us out when need. Yeah, I think he'll just like slide right into the role.
Danny, I think we've got to bring up your situation, which I mean we're really still in the middle of, and that is COVID. and support and you being pregnant with twins. Like, tell us about that craziness and how, you know, that's its own experience in itself.
Yeah, so obviously the support factor was a huge element for me, and I kept trying to plan things, but at every turn my plan would get foiled. You know, first I'm trying to have one baby and I had two, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to figure this out all over again. And then COVID hit in the middle of my pregnancy. And we weren't sure what was going to happen. So I still kind of made a plan. I started writing like an ad to find a mother's assistant. I didn't want to call it a nanny because it wasn't someone that was going to take my role. It was someone who is going to assist me in my parenting duties, I guess you could say. But we didn't know what was happening for a while. And then the girls came early. They came 6 weeks early. So we didn't have time at that point to plan anything. And that was in April, and everything was just shutting down and everyone was isolating themselves. And so we didn't know. We're like, you know, we had Rudy's mom and dad and my mom and dad, and we didn't know if they should be here or not. And that was hard, but we were very lucky that Rudy started working from home because of the pandemic. So that actually worked in our favor. I also
And
work
are
from
y'all
home.
both still working at home right now?
Yeah, we are. We're both working from home, and we've gotten to a point where we have my dad come in 3 days a week, and his mom comes in 2 days a week. So we all kind of juggle it together. Like Rudy and I will be working, and we kind of let each other know when we have conference calls, or and we make sure whoever's here is, like, you know, taking over and babysitting them basically. But yeah, so we eventually figured it out, but it was complicated for a bit there. But we still managed, you know, even when it was just me and him, and he's my caregiver. It wasn't easy on him. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You know, we've had to revisit things in our relationship a couple times, you know, because it's a lot on him, but it's also a lot on me. I'm pushing myself to my limit, you know, physically to do as much as I can to take care of my babies and hold my job. I'm not trying to scare any of you guys. Probably unlikely that you all are going to have multiples, and that adds in a whole, more challenges. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, like I do, like, as a working mom as well, I work a lot of hours. I enjoy working, but I always wanted motherhood as part of it. And I think a lot of it is what you've all said. You all kind of create your own plans. For me, I knew that having, you know, childcare providers that, you know, mostly are in my home throughout the years. My daughter is 7. So in the last 7 years, you know, mostly have been my home. I've even had au pair who's lived in our home. But finding, and some of that really didn't have anything to do with the fact that I had a disability. It was just more, you know, being a busy working mom, like how you juggle those things and what things you can do to eliminate it so you have more space to give yourself to be a mom and to live your life and take care of your body. So, but I think you all sharing about how the support, you know, while it changes, it's still critical, whatever part of the process you're in. You know, one of the things that I would be curious about, Danny, is is there anything that you wish you knew before you started your motherhood journey, where you are now, 9 months in, outside the womb? You know, what do you wish you knew back 9 months before?
Well, I was quite confident going into it. My pregnancy was physically difficult for me, but I maintained this sort of sense of empowerment and confidence the whole time. Postpartum has been a struggle. It's been hard. And it was something that I didn't think about or consider or talk to people about. So that kind of caught me off guard. Breastfeeding as a woman with a disability and a significant inability to use my hands. I don't have very good dexterity. That made breastfeeding really hard, and breastfeeding too. So emotionally, it was difficult for me because I really wanted to breastfeed, and not everyone does, and that's okay. But I really wanted to, and I wasn't able to the full extent. Emotionally, I didn't realize that that would be so difficult to deal with. Such a difficult feeling. I think I wanted to so badly because I felt like it was something that my body could actually do. Because I'm paralyzed like almost everywhere. And I was like, wow, my body can produce milk and nourish a baby. And that made me feel good. But so, and then also recovery. Sitting in the chair with a massive belly did some damage to my posture. My spine and my muscles hurt, and I haven't really gotten any PT. My abdominal wall is kind of screwed up, I think, from the C-section. But at some point I'll get PT. I know that I have to wait a couple months till I'm vaccinated. Oh,
Sorry,
Sunny.
there got muted there. One thing, Alyssa, I think everyone would be curious about is because, the reality is we don't look like what society thinks a pregnant woman should look like. And when we're rolling down, even in COVID times where we're mostly at home, when we go out anywhere, it's kind of not assumed that whatever they think they're seeing is that you're pregnant. But tell us a little bit about how it is like navigating in the outside world as a pregnant woman who's visibly disabled.
So right now, I really don't go anywhere. Honestly, besides Target, but I kind of dress with oversized sweaters, whatever it is, just because it's getting harder anyway, just getting bigger and everything. So no one really has, I guess, noticed, if you want to say, that I was pregnant, except my neighbors.
Oh, it's coming eventually.
Yeah. My neighbors, my family, it's the normal people that I see like every day, honestly. So it's not like I'm getting stared at yet or questioned yet. Um, Besides the Instagram posts, but like cause due to COVID, really don't go out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, I know Danny has talked about that as well, just, what life will be like emerging with the twins out in the world. I know that, a lot with my kids, you get a lot of stares, honestly. But I think using that as an opportunity to put more visibility towards disability in all its forms can be a really great thing. And I look for the day we can do that more. Danny, we are getting like some awesome questions coming in, and so we can transition to those. But just tell us before we do, like, what was your main message and hope in putting out the Danny's Twins film?
Okay, so this film was hard to do. I'm kind of reserved person at first, and I'm getting better at it, but I have a hard time putting myself out there. But I felt compelled to do this. First of all, I trusted the person that was making the documentary. It was a friend of mine. And I trusted that he could tell this story authentically and represent me as a disabled woman in the way I wanted to be represented on screen. I didn't want to just be someone's inspiration. It's okay to be inspired by this, but I didn't want to be reduced to just that. I'm so much more than that. I wanted to normalize disability and parents with disabilities. I wanted people to see this and respect us. I wanted other disabled women to watch this and say, hey, that could be me. This is possible. I could do this too. Yeah, I think those were the motivating factors for me to pursue the film.
All right, ladies, Danny, that message was just spot on. And just as Kelly had mentioned before, visibility and about inclusion. And I just appreciate all of your stories so much. And thank you so much for sharing. As Kelly mentioned, we have so many questions coming in, and it is just amazing to see people from all over the country really putting themselves out there and really wanting to learn more. So for everyone watching, just so you know, we will get your questions answered. If it's not here today, we'll do a blog post. We'll make sure your questions get answered, but we are on limited time here today as it is. Let me just start throwing out a few comments. Amanda, someone commented that they just love that you said it was okay to want to have a baby and keep yourself as a priority. I think that's just so important as women, as we say, we can have it all, we want to have it all, but it's important to know that that's okay. I think that was a really great message that someone picked up on. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, glad you agree with me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now let me pick up. We have our first question was, have any of the panelists had trouble with their pelvic floor post-childbirth? I'm a T5 paraplegic trying to determine whether I'd like to carry a child biologically or adopt. I guess Kelly, Danny, This would mostly be for you.
I can say, I'm a complete injury. So I think, towards towards the mid to end part of your pregnancy, you're going to have a lot of issues related to bladder and bladder control. And that's why, having good prenatal care is really important. After I gave birth, I kind of, my body thankfully kind of went back to its old messed up self, but less messed up than it was when I was pregnant. And so I haven't had any like prolapse issues that have come up. Certainly, that is something I have thought about after having 2 children, but that's not something that thankfully I have. I think our bodies are really resilient in so many ways, and I was able to transition back to my old norm, catheterizing and everything following that, following my pregnancy.
And Danny, had you had any issues?
During pregnancy, the bladder management for me was pretty hard. I didn't have very much control at all. I knew they wouldn't last the whole. No, sorry, I knew they wouldn't last. Take that room. We've got one in that room, one in that room. So, as for pelvic floor, now I think I'm not really sure exactly how that all works. I'm not a doctor, so it's hard for me to speak about it. But I think after the pregnancy, my bladder went to normal, back to normal. And the only issue I really had was my abdominal wall was very weak. And I possibly had that condition where they separate, the muscles separate a little bit. And I also noticed, not pelvic floor again, but my rib cage started to jut out a lot. And that's normal for a lot of women, but I think it was more extreme for me because I already had atrophy in my abdomen, and that's the abdomen kind of tucks your ribs down and in. So those are some of the things that I've been dealing with since the pregnancy. Sorry, I can't talk more specifically on the pelvic wall thing.
That's all right, because maybe someone else in the group that on the chat, if anyone on the chat has anything to add, please add to our conversation. One question I really wanted to get to, because we've been talking about this in all of our conversations, and this person was I was really happy they sent this question, and we're going to kind of combine a few, but what do you wish that all prenatal care providers knew about the experience of being pregnant with a disability, and how can they provide more sensitive and affirming care? And on top of that, kind of combining some other questions that we've gotten about, and Kelly, you have posted about this recently, what about doctors who don't have scales that can weigh people in wheelchairs? Or how do you even go about finding OBs that are sensitive to people with spinal cord injury or have any experience? So Kelly, I don't know if you want to take, just because I know you've been so vocal about it recently, if you want to start that and what you wish that people would, that prenatal care providers would actually know.
Yeah, so I mean, with my with my pregnancy with my son, like it was a planned pregnancy. I was able to have the support of a OB. Actually, didn't use a maternal fetal medicine or high risk doctor, and it was more. I had a doctor who believed in me and believed that I could have a healthy pregnancy and was going to be there with me. Um, but at the same time, there were the adjustable height tables. You know, as you become more pregnant, I don't want to be lifted. I can't lift up to a high table. I mean, we all have that problem. This pregnancy, honestly, it was a surprise. It was my little COVID surprise. And so I wasn't established, and I've encountered a lot of barriers, and even as an advocate, like that's what I do for my job and everything. It's been a struggle. I mean, to have to, you know, I'm in a large hospital system and well-funded hospitals, and to say like, you don't have a scale you can weigh me on. I sit in my wheelchair all day. I'm susceptible for skin breakdown. You have to weigh me. This is important. The solution I have right now is they weigh me on an ER gurney every time I go in. I went in yesterday. And I still don't think that's appropriate. And I'm still trying to say, like, look, get a scale. But I'm adamant, and I make sure that like we're not going forward in my care if I'm not in a place where it's adjustable height. A lot of the parts are, I initially went to an OB and they didn't understand spinal cord injury, paralysis, and pregnancy. And they were scared by it, and they ultimately just said that they didn't feel comfortable with my care. And so I would say to any of the practitioners on here, thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for becoming an ally. Pregnancy and paralysis is one way to be pregnant, but it is a way, and people need to know about it. But we have to have practitioners that believe in us and will stand behind us.
I don't know, even Amanda, I know you're still so early on in the process, but have you encountered any barriers or anything in your process so far?
Really the main one is just like finding, you always encounter problems with having a spinal cord injury and people not being very educated on the injury and the type of care that you need. Like I've been in the hospital on the neuro floor before and just been like mind blown about how little people know about spinal cord injury. And so I guess I should have maybe like known, I don't know, but I just didn't foresee having such a hard time finding a reproductive endocrinologist that could take on my case. Like I didn't know that these fertility clinics would not be equipped to handle somebody with a spinal cord injury. I mean, it's not that uncommon I know it's not super common, but it's not that uncommon. And I'm in Orlando. I'm not in a small town. I'm like in a big city. Like, how is there not a fertility clinic that can help me? It's kind of crazy to me, to be honest.
Alyssa, how about you?
I agree with Amanda because I go to a big city hospital too, and they're like shocked about me being pregnant, and Kelly too, how she said about the scale. There was no way to weigh me. My husband had to weigh himself first, and then lift me up, and then weigh both of us, and then subtract that. So it's like, all right, there should be a little bit more technology now with what year we're in,
Yeah.
But it's also just the fact that they're shocked that I am pregnant and that they really don't have answers either. That's what's upsetting. It's just they're basically learning as I'm getting bigger and bigger. So it stinks that they don't know more about spinal cord injuries.
Someone did mention in the chat that if you have a nutritionist or dietitian office in the hospital, that's where she found an accessible scale to be weighed on. So just one suggestion for people who are listening.
Yeah.
Let me try my best to really wrap this up because we are ending into nearing an hour at this point, and I know that we have not reached everyone's questions. Believe me, I know we have a list, and I really appreciate everyone for viewing and for being here. I want to just make a few points before we send our closing messages, in that this has been such an amazing conversation, but I will say it's the first of 3 conversations and maybe of many conversations. We have another Hope Talk coming up in partnership with Danny's Twins in March that will be talking about adaptive products that you can use as a parent to take care of your children. So please be sure to look out on the Danny's Twins Film Facebook page, on the Help Hope Live Facebook page, and all of our social media at helphopelive.org for all of that information coming up soon. You'll receive an e-blast. So I just appreciate all of you so much. And also tomorrow, we have a raffle drawing to all of the registrants for the Disabled Woman's Pregnancy Journey book. And so we will be on the Danny's Twins Film Facebook page, and Danny herself will be pulling the raffle and will be pulling the name at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if everyone could please join us then, and we will pull whoever wins the raffle, and that will be a nice little gift from Help Hope Live for joining our conversation. And again, also to any of you out there that maybe are wondering how to get through this pregnancy journey, and maybe there might be some costs added to it, please look into www.helphopelive.org, and we are here to help you fundraise for those costs. So with that, the 4 of you have just been so amazing. I really appreciate your openness and honesty. If maybe you could each just kind of leave our viewers with a message or what you were hoping to put out there. I know Danny had said her message with the film, but even with this conversation, because I know you were so excited to really get this community together. You had mentioned how important it is and how few and far between these kind of conversations even happen. So Kelly, maybe if we start with you and see, and then we'll wrap it around the room here.
I'd just like to say, you know, I think the main thing is to acknowledge like all of our journeys are different, but at the same time recognizing that different isn't bad. Different leads us to a wonderful experience that can be a hope and a dream for many people, and that's to become a parent. And so I think having more visibility to these experiences that may seem different to other people, but are normal. My kids, they have had no other mom except a mom in a wheelchair. You know, I am a mom through adoption, and we of course haven't even talked about that process. So if you ever have any questions about
and we did have some questions about adoption, so I will send them to you as well.
Yeah, if you have any questions about adoption and disability, that's its own, you know, hour-long talk, but please feel free to reach out to me. But I think a lot of it is, you know, being us understanding that our different journeys aren't insignificant, that we can go on to be wonderful parents. And I'm just really glad to be in the company of other women who I can share, you know, these different experiences with.
Amanda, how about you?
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
You.
Well, I guess really my message I kind of said in the beginning, and Sunny already restated it, just like it's okay to want a family, but it's okay to also prioritize yourself and your health. But I also just want to say too, for anyone that's listening that's maybe considering surrogacy as well, I've been with Help Hope Live basically since I was injured, and especially right now, doing amazing things to help me fundraise because surrogacy is extremely expensive. So I couldn't do this without Help Hope Live, and I'm very grateful for the organization. So if you're considering it, Help Hope Live, get in touch with them, start fundraising. It'll help such a huge financial burden off of your, like personally.
And no, I appreciate that. And I'm going to kind of just offer you up here, but I know everyone can follow Amanda. And if you have any questions, she's used us and she's been through the process. So, and Danny too. So hear it straight from them about how to do this, and we're here to help. Alyssa, how about you?
There's so much that I could say, but I just want to thank you first of all for everyone that joined this. And just don't ever doubt yourself. And if you want to carry the baby yourself, go ahead. Like if Amanda, like Amanda, she's doing the IVF, go right ahead. It's all what you want. It's all about your body. Just do what you want to do, but don't ever doubt yourself either.
It's a great message. Absolutely. Don't ever doubt yourself. And last, but absolutely not least, the one who brought us all together. Danny, how about you? Do you have anything left at this point, even to leave us off with?
I just love this. Like, I love that we're all here together, and I know that I think we're all passionate about doing these kinds of things. And I think, we need to keep making these connections in the community on social media, which is really helpful to help connect us together, collaborating, being creative and getting this topic out there. There's so many of you that whose names I recognize, and people who I've met and haven't met, and it's just really beautiful for us to all be here together. So thank you guys.
And with that, we could go for hours more. I know we could. But with that, this first part of the Danny's Twins film conversation with Help Hope Live is coming to an end. So really, Danny, Alyssa, Amanda, Kelly, thank you so much for being here to join us, to share your stories, and to create this amazing community that we now have. It's just been off the wall. It really has. We're so excited to have this community started and to really keep growing it. So everyone have a great weekend. I hate to end it, so we're just gonna end it like that. Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm gonna stop the recording and we'll just be here to go.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.